Elysian Tales. It speaks of a warrior who wields that very blade.
You will be tested, Dust. An army of thousands stands before us, and they've never been defeated. Well, let's not keep them waiting.
What's going on, everyone? Great Talon here, and today the prey is going to be my Dust An Elysian Tail review. So Dust An Elysian Tail was originally published by Microsoft, believe it or not, back in 2013, but since then has gone multi-platform and is now available on PS4 and even the Switch as of 2017 as well. I myself will be critiquing it on the PS4 perspective, as I just found this game in my digital PS4 library, just sitting there collecting digital dust, and I never finished it back from 2014. And I thought, 2019 is as good a time as ever, especially now since it's the summer and there's always a bit of a gaming drought in the months of late July into late August. For some reason. So I just wanted to top this game off before the fall madness commences, as you all know. This is an action platforming Metroidvania-like game at its core with an artistic style that reminds me of something out of an anime or well-detailed cartoon. It has full-on voice acting and more is generally solid at its core. By the time I reached the end of the game, I was caught off guard by something rather that made me uneasy and in turn wince by the game's design decisions. So is this one worth your time or not? Well, let the great Talon be your guide, and let's find out, shall we? So we're going to start off with the graphics, performance, and controls again. The visual style and presentation Dust demonstrates can be identified immediately as portraying something out of a graphic novel or beautifully rendered cartoon or anime. And although the game originally released in 2013, almost 7 years ago, and does look a little bit dated at times, I can still appreciate what it was trying to emanate and trying to be for what it's worth. But I will mention that due to its age, there are many sections that are a bit blurry on the blurry side when I was playing on my PS4, as I noticed that it was trying to upscale the game to 1080p when it originally was set up to run at 720p on the Xbox 360 and even on the PS4 as well. But from that aside, I must remark on how lush and rich the artistic style was. The vibrant colors on screen from whichever part of the Elysian world you were in were really, was pulsating with life and used to almost watercolor-like textures and patterns to accentuate the level of detail from character models and environments alike. The frame rate was pretty impressive, I thought, too, while bolstering a ridiculous number of combos on screen and fighting between up to 15 to 20 enemy foes at once and rendering up to 1,000 or more hit combos. I was surprised that the game was able to pull that off pretty decently, that is, until the game decided to unfortunately crash on me multiple times in a row, really, throughout my playthrough, and sometimes sequentially, mostly during the intense action sequences such as the aforementioned. Controlling the main character, Dust, around is pretty solid, though, for the most part. You can perform platform and jump and strike and maneuver without much of a hitch throughout the game. I only found a slight hindrance during some platforming sections that required you to time your wall jumps just so precisely, but it was very few and far between, so it probably isn't even worth going into detail about. Now on to the gameplay and a bit about the story. The story of Dust can be summarized in that you are an amnesiac warrior armed with a talking spirit blade, accompanied by a flying tails-like creature from Sonic the Hedgehog, who's a lady-like fox creature, who aids you in your journey to reclaim your memories and stop the evil General Gaius and his armies from instilling an unholy order onto the land while exterminating the majority of the clans from the land. Some of the side quests are a bit on the somber and dark side as well, and the game deals a lot with death and the afterlife, so to speak, in the Elysian fields. It might be a little too deep for those young kids out there to understand. Like, for example, there was this one quest where I had to restore water to this well in this village, so the grandfather who ran the village could drink it and heal himself because he was very ill, and drink its rejuvenating nectar of life. But by the time I reactivated the well, it was too late and the grandfather had passed away right in front of the daughter and the grandson's eyes. Yikes. The story features full-blown voice acting too, most of which is pretty well implemented if you ask me, and more than often sounds very sincere and heartfelt, like the actors were really giving it their all. And I felt more times than not I was like I was watching an interactive animated series play out, which felt nice. The gameplay mechanics are your standard hack and slash like action maneuvers, with some mild platforming segments as you traverse the interconnected maps that are scattered about the world within the overworld, which have several different locales that you can teleport to as well. You're armed with the talking sword and ability to manipulate your familiar lady-like fox friend and have her spew elemental projectile damage in the form of either fire, air, or electricity damage to stun foes, so you can get up and close and personal and spank to let them into oblivion. There's also light RPG elements as well, and you can find or craft new gear like tunics, necklaces, rings, amulets to boost your attack, defense, luck, or HP. Very similar to the Bloodstained or Castlevania-like series. You also unlock new abilities in your travels as well, a la Metroid, such as wall climbing, jumping, sliding, super jumping. And you can also acquire gold from fallen foes as well to purchase healing items and new equipment from the merchant, who will, always scattered all across the map. You can lockpick with special keys you obtain. There's also well-timed save stations on the grid and the map right before major boss fights or rather tricky sections, which I thought were really nicely integrated. You can also pull off and parry and counter by holding down the attack button at the moment a foe attacks you to counter them and stun them, leaving them open to attack. The missions and quests you receive range from simple fetch quests you receive, such as restoring a system's water supply, like I mentioned, or reactivating security defense systems with light puzzle-solving elements along the way, such as using explosive fruit to blow up breakable walls to progress forward. While the mechanics at all function properly, I must note that what really did me in, and I did not realize and really hurt the score for me personally, that I did not realize how difficult the game spike happened. The difficulty curve spikes in the latter half of the game. The game doesn't really tell you, hey, all those side quests you encountered and you thought they were optional? Well, they're not really optional as much as you want them to be, and you have to be a high enough level to beat the final boss. Well, oh yeah, by the way, it has 3 phases with no checkpoints in between each phase. Go with God and good luck. Vaya con Dios. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of video games that lure me in with an attractive visual style and gameplay mechanic system, and then at the last minute inject an insane difficulty spike and curve and go, hey, what's the matter? Do you even side quest, bro? To me, that's a cheap move. It's some people out there like myself have either time constraints or simply just want to see how the main story unfolds and have to be forced to do almost all the side quests just to reach a high enough level to go toe-to-toe with the game's final story boss. That's a bit of on the questionable side to me. Why even bother playing the single player quest line if you have to be forced to go back and do all the side stuff that was apparently optional in the first place? That's almost as bad as EA or Activision saying, don't worry, these surprise mechanics and loot box, whatever the fuck you want to call them, or microtransactions, all our games are completely optional. Bullcrap. Unfortunately, this is not something I can look past and will definitely affect the score overall for me.
It's you again. We met outside Aurora, remember? Old Cora, they call me.
I think it was crazy, old Cora, actually.
Yes, I remember you now. What are you doing all the way out here? These meadows are dangerous.
Bah! I've known these meadows since I was young. There's not a creature here that could harm me.
Regarding the sound, music, and voice, the music is mellow and not as robust and prominent as I noticed throughout the game, which is fine, as Dust is actually a pretty chill game for the most part, despite its heavily action-oriented focus and appearance. While the sound effects from sword clashing to twirling your talking sword around like it was a baton from the Macy's Day Parade, to even the environmental sound effects from lava to wind to crumbling platforms, the bigger focus and onset to me would be the intentional focus on the voice acting, which really plays out better than I expected, especially in the final act of the game. There's intense drama, there's tense motion, and some even lighthearted comic relief at times in their more serious moments in the game, which I appreciated and thought helped to balance the mood quite nicely. You really felt the plight of Dust by the end game's end and the mental journey and strenuous nature he endured by trying to regain his lost memories and time that really meshed well together in tandem with the other characters around him. In regards to the replay value, honestly, to be honest, I'm going to go moderate. Dust was a fun romp until they kind of said, hey, you have to feel this game has a high replay value because it kind of doesn't. Once you learn and become aware that pretty much they force you to do almost everything in the game against your will. Regardless of how you feel. I mean, or else you won't be able to top the final boss in his merry 3 phases with no breaks in between. Some of the side quests are interesting, while others are a bit of a yawn and just more of the same. And get that, bring this back here, bring this to this person, wash, rinse, repeat, those type of fetch quests. And the overall score I'm going to go with, and is it worth your time? Unfortunately, if the game didn't be a Nazi and say you have to be at least level 47 to finish the story, and I was a mere puny low level 27 and only did a few side quests and was getting buttered in the last fight, getting fucking one-shotted. It was insane. I would have honestly scored this game higher than a 7 out of 10, but sadly, the game wanted to showcase its iron fist in the end of the game and make me do missions I really didn't care for, only to pad my level so I could finish the tale it was trying to tell. And I'm sorry, but when games try to do that, they try and force something on me, and that's really trying to just pad the game's playtime or whatever. It's just simply they're douches to do that. I'm sorry, they like to smell their own stank so much that they want you to play every single piece of their game, albeit if it's good or bad. For that, I will say that no, Dust is not really worth your time in the end if you're not prepared to do every little single quest minuscule of this game and morsel of this game, and pray to the old gods in the new year, at least level 47 by the game's end, and have a couple of dozen healing items on hand, which are a bit hard to come by in the game's end as you have to grind for money. And with that being said, I'm sorry, so Dust is a solid game. It's a 7 out of 10, but it's just not for me as a whole. I'm still giving it a 7. It's still solid. It's well built, but it's just some odd difficulty spikes and design choices that keep me from giving it a high score. So that being said, that's my review of Dust. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks, as always, for stopping by.